Captain Elias Varn stood on the observation deck of his ship, the starbound horizon, staring at the glittering stars. Space had always been his home, his escape, and his battlefield. Every star, every planet, every alien system he had visited reminded him that the galaxy was full of life, but most importantly, full of rules that humans were expected to obey. Elias had never been one to follow rules that felt wrong. He had survived battles, negotiated peace treaties, and explored unknown worlds, but the one challenge he could never accept was the one the galaxy's most powerful empires insisted upon: alien brides. From the moment humans had expanded beyond the Sol system, interstellar politics had been a tangled web of marriages and alliances. Each alien race had its customs, and for some, marriage was not just tradition, it was a tool of control. By offering human captains and leaders alien brides, these civilizations tried to bind humans to their will, to make them depend on them, to make them part of their plans. Elias had said no, every time. He remembered the first offer from the Thrin cluster, a species of six-limbed diplomats with glowing eyes and voices that could pierce your thoughts. Their bride had been breathtaking, elegant in a way no human could imagine. But Elias had refused. He had seen the glimmer in her eyes, the ambition hidden behind her smile. He did not doubt she would have done her duty, using him to bind humans into her empire's network. He had looked her in the eyes and said clearly, "I am human. I am free. I choose my own path." But Elias did not care. He had a simple belief: humans should remain humans, not tools for alien ambitions. Today, another envoy had arrived. Elias had been warned that this one was different. The Ziran Empire, feared across several quadrants for their warriors and cunning strategies, had sent their message in a tone that left no room for refusal. The message was simple: refuse us and there will be consequences. He could not underestimate them, but he would not bend either. The doors opened, and a delegation stepped aboard. Their leader moved with a grace that seemed almost predatory. He was tall, with skin that shimmered silver under the lights and eyes that glowed faintly. But Elias' attention was drawn to the person standing beside him. She was human in appearance, yet something about her made Elias uneasy. He could sense the weight of power in her presence, the sharpness in her gaze. "She is Ziran," the envoy said formally, "but you will see she is unlike any you have met." Her expression was calm, almost amused, as if she knew secrets he had yet to discover. She did not speak immediately. Instead, she let the silence stretch, testing him. Elias held her gaze. He had faced warriors, assassins, and tricksters before. This woman would be no different. He would meet her challenge with the same resolve he had shown all his life. "Captain Elias Varn," the Ziran leader said, "I am Ambassador Kryn. We bring a proposal for alliance. Our most skilled operative, Lyris Kale, will join you as a bride, as required by your position. Her presence is an honor. Acceptance will bring peace, respect, and cooperation." He could feel the tension in the room, the way the envoy and his officers were watching for his reaction. He spoke calmly, each word deliberate. "I do not need honor or alliances that bind me through marriage. I am grateful for your offer, but I will not accept a bride from your empire or any other. Humans must remain free, and so must I." Even the hum of the engines seemed to fade. Elias did not flinch. The Ziran envoy's glowing eyes narrowed. "You refuse." Stories of his refusals had already spread. To some, he was a symbol of human independence. To others, a reckless fool who would bring war upon himself. A subtle smile appeared on Lyris Kale's face. She had not spoken, yet her presence carried a tension that made every officer in the room shift slightly. She stepped forward. Her movements were precise, measured, and confident, like a predator circling prey, but Elias was no prey. He remained calm, his hands at his sides, his eyes locked on hers. "You are bold," she said, her voice smooth and quiet. "Few humans have the courage to refuse the Ziran Empire. Fewer still have lived to do so more than once." She was skilled, no doubt about it. He could see the traces of combat training in her posture, the discipline in the way she carried herself. And yet, despite the aura of danger surrounding her, he did not flinch. "I choose my own path," Elias said. "I do not serve empires, I serve humanity, and I serve my own conscience. We will send someone who will make you reconsider, someone you cannot refuse, someone whose skills, presence, and influence will be undeniable. Your survival depends on it." As Kryn and the delegation left, Lyris lingered for a moment, her eyes never leaving Elias. Then she turned and followed her escort out. Elias could feel her presence linger, a subtle challenge that left him uneasy in a way he had not felt in years. That night, Elias sat alone in his quarters, reviewing the latest mission reports. Yet his mind kept returning to her, Lyris Kale. The name sounded simple, almost human, but it carried weight. He had been warned, but now he had a sense of what he was up against. The Xiran Empire did not send anyone lightly. This was no ordinary envoy. He thought back to the many offers he had rejected. Each had been an attempt to bind him, to manipulate him, to use his position for their gain. He had refused because he valued freedom, because he valued humanity. But this time, he felt the weight of the stakes pressing closer. The next morning, the ship's communication console chimed. A message appeared, simple and direct. "Prepare yourself, she is coming." He had survived countless threats, and he would face this one the same way. But even he could feel a ripple of unease. He did not know her skills, her intent, or the full power of the Empire behind her. He only knew one thing: this would be the greatest challenge he had ever faced, and it would test not just his skills as a captain, but the strength of his humanity. Hours later, the docking bay lights flashed as a transport vessel approached. Elias watched as it slowly merged with the ship's bay. The doors opened, and the figure of Lyris Kale appeared, framed by the doorway. She moved with the precision of a trained warrior, yet carried herself with an elegance that seemed effortless. Every step she took exuded confidence, control, and danger. Elias' officers shifted nervously. They had heard the rumors, but now they could see her for themselves. Some looked in awe, some in fear. Elias merely observed, noting every detail, every subtle movement, every hint of strategy hidden in her posture. Lyris stopped a few feet away from him. For a moment, silence hung between them. Then she smiled, faint but knowing. "So," she said softly, almost teasing, "you are the human who refuses all brides. We shall see how long that lasts." And he would face whatever the galaxy sent with courage, intelligence, and the unyielding determination that had defined his life. But even as he told himself that, a part of him could not ignore the truth. Lyris Kale was unlike any opponent, ally, or challenge he had ever faced, and the galaxy was about to witness a test of humanity the likes of which it had never seen. The stars outside glittered, indifferent to the struggles of one human. But Elias Varn would show them, and the galaxy, that humans were not to be controlled, bought, or broken. He would show them that humanity, in all its imperfection and courage, could rise above even the most dangerous forces the universe could send. And so, the stage was set. The most dangerous bride the galaxy had ever known had arrived, and the human who rejected them all was ready. The journey, the challenge, and the true test of humanity had only just begun. The next morning, the corridors of the starbound horizon buzzed with activity, but Elias moved through them like a man in control of both ship and crew. Yet beneath his calm exterior, he could feel the presence of Lyris Kale pressing at the edges of his attention. She had not yet spoken much, but her silence was sharper than any words. It was clear she was observing him, learning, assessing, and perhaps plotting. Elias entered the command center, where his officers had already begun preparations for the day's routine inspection of nearby sectors. His eyes scanned the digital displays, noting anomalies, star movements, and ship readings. Lyris followed quietly, her steps precise and deliberate, never touching a surface unnecessarily. "Captain," she said finally, her voice low but commanding, "I should understand the operational procedures of this vessel. Efficiency is key when handling threats, and you will need my expertise if we are to survive the coming tests. That is my purpose, to push you." Partnership, that was a word carefully chosen, layered with meaning. She was testing him already, seeing how he would react. The first mission came sooner than he expected. A distress signal had been picked up from a mining colony on the edge of Xiran space. Something was attacking the colony, something advanced and coordinated. Elias immediately mobilized the crew, and Lyris was assigned to assist him. From the moment they entered the colony's orbit, Lyris's skills became apparent. She analyzed the situation quickly, pointing out weaknesses in the colony's defenses and identifying the attackers as a small fleet of rogue drones with advanced AI combat programming. Elias had seen drones before, but these were precise, deadly, and adaptive. "We will need to disable their command core," Lyris said. "If we do not, they will regroup and destroy the colony." He could sense her calculating every move, every reaction. She was testing his decision-making under pressure, but she did not yet know the full extent of human creativity and resilience. The landing on the planet was smooth, but tense. The colony lay in partial ruin, smoke rising from several buildings. Survivors scrambled to maintain order while Elias and Lyris moved toward the control center. The interior was chaotic. Panels were damaged, security drones were malfunctioning, and the hum of energy weapons could still be heard outside. Elias quickly assessed the situation and directed the human crew to stabilize essential systems, while Lyris moved ahead, scanning and disabling rogue units with precise strikes and subtle manipulations of the colony's systems. Elias could not help but admire her skill. She moved with the efficiency of a machine, yet her awareness of human emotions and needs was clear in small gestures, reassuring a terrified engineer, positioning a shield to protect civilians, pausing to assess risk before every action. She was deadly, yes, but also disciplined and careful. Impressive, Elias said quietly, not wanting to break the flow of operations. Observation is key, she replied. And humans are unpredictable. That makes your species both dangerous and intriguing. You do not follow the expected path. You improvise. That is why the Empire sends me. They wish to see if your kind can survive not just their weapons, but their challenges to character and resolve. Elias found himself making split-second decisions, balancing risk, and using creativity in ways that would have surprised most other species. Lyris followed closely, offering advice but never taking control. Elias realized she respected his autonomy, even while observing and recording his actions. It was a delicate balance of trust and challenge, and he was beginning to understand that this mission was as much about proving human ingenuity as it was about defending the colony. When they finally reached the command core, a massive energy shield blocked the entrance. Elias studied the panels and schematics, while Lyris crouched beside him, scanning and analyzing the system. Your solution will need both precision and courage, she said. This core is designed to adapt and retaliate. Any hesitation will trigger self-defense protocols. Humans rarely succeed without risk. Elias navigated the control panels, improvising where the programming resisted, while Lyris disabled external defenses with calculated timing. Their efforts synchronized, creating a rhythm of human creativity and calculated precision that neither alone could achieve. Finally, the core powered down. The drones halted, their AI neutralized, and the colony's systems stabilized. Survivors cheered and the tension in the air eased. Elias exhaled slowly, feeling a mixture of relief and exhilaration. Lyris regarded him silently for a moment, then nodded in approval. You exceeded expectations, she said softly. Not just in skill, but in leadership and courage. I can see why the Empire finds humans challenging. But we survive, we adapt, we act when others hesitate. He did not know the full extent of the Empire's plans, nor the depth of Lyris's abilities. But one thing was certain, humans were unpredictable. They could face danger, adapt to it, and rise above expectations. That was a lesson not just for aliens, but for himself. Back aboard the starbound Horizon, the crew repaired minor damages from the mission while Elias and Lyris walked through the corridors. The silence between them was comfortable yet tense, charged with unspoken understanding and mutual respect. You trust me, Lyris said quietly. Elias paused. I do not trust easily, he replied, but I respect skill, courage, and honesty. You have shown all three today. The Empire had sent her to test him, yes, but perhaps they had underestimated the strength of human character, the ingenuity of a human mind, and the refusal to be controlled. That night, as Elias gazed out at the stars once more, he allowed himself a moment of reflection. He had faced death, betrayal, and war countless times. He had survived by relying on skill, courage, and careful thought. Yet now the presence of Lyris Kale introduced a new variable, someone who was not just an enemy, not just a threat, but a mirror to his own abilities, a challenge to his convictions. He knew the Empire would not stop. They would escalate, testing him in ways he could not yet predict. But he also knew that humans were adaptable. They were creative, resilient, and capable of surprising even the most calculating of alien minds. And he, Elias Varn, would embody that strength, standing firm against every attempt to manipulate, control, or intimidate. As the ship moved silently through the void, he felt the spark of determination that had guided him all his life. Lyris Kale had arrived to test him, but she had already witnessed the power of human resolve. And the galaxy, he realized, was about to see it as well. The journey had begun, and the first trial had been survived. Yet both he and Lyris knew that far greater challenges lay ahead, tests that would push the boundaries of courage, intellect, and humanity itself. And in that silent understanding, a new chapter began, one where humans would demonstrate that their strength lay not just in weapons or technology, but in their hearts, minds, and unyielding spirit. The stars outside continued to shine, indifferent to the struggles of those aboard the starbound horizon. But Elias Varn would prove that even in the vast, uncaring universe, humans could rise, adapt, and triumph where others might falter. Lyris Kale observed him quietly, a faint smile touching her lips. This was more than a mission. It was a revelation. The human before her, who refused to be bound, who acted with integrity and courage, was remarkable. And the Empire's plans would soon collide with a force they had not anticipated: human ingenuity, determination, and unbreakable spirit. The first test was over, but the true journey, the one that would challenge the very core of what it meant to be human, was only beginning. Weeks passed after the first mission, and the tension aboard the starbound horizon never eased. Lyris Kale moved among the crew with calm precision, observing every routine, every decision, every interaction. She never interfered unnecessarily, but her presence alone was enough to keep everyone alert. Elias had grown accustomed to it, but he could feel that the Empire's test was far from over. The next challenge arrived in the form of a communication from the Interstellar Union. A distress call came from a nearby research station on a planet rich with rare minerals. The station was under attack by mercenaries hired by an unknown faction, possibly a coalition of alien powers seeking to destabilize human influence in the sector. Elias knew this mission would test more than combat skills. It would test leadership, ingenuity, and human resilience. As the starbound horizon approached the planet, Elias gathered the officers and Lyris in the command center. "We do not know who these attackers are or what they want, but they are aggressive and coordinated. Casualty is not an option. We will need strategy, quick thinking, and cooperation," he said firmly. Lyris observed him quietly, her expression unreadable. "Humans have a unique ability," she said softly. "You improvise in the face of unexpected challenges. That is why you have survived when others have failed. But this is not only about survival. This is about proving limits, testing spirit and intellect. We adapt, we fight, and we protect what is ours." She moved silently, disabling threats before they could react. Her presence was unsettling, yet Elias relied on his instincts, trusting his judgment and experience to navigate through chaos. The first confrontation came near the energy core of the station. Mercenaries had rigged a powerful explosive to destroy the station's main generator. Elias assessed the situation immediately, noticing the delicate wiring and the pressure triggers. Lyris crouched beside him, scanning the device. "You will need to reroute the energy flow manually," she said. "It requires precision and steady hands. Any mistake could trigger detonation." Civilians and researchers were trapped nearby, and time was short. He took a deep breath and began working, his hands moving quickly but carefully. Lyris provided precise instructions, warning him of potential triggers. Together, they created a system bypass that stabilized the generator. The explosion was prevented. The mercenaries reacted, realizing their plan had failed. They charged toward the control room, but Elias anticipated their movements. He positioned his crew strategically, using knowledge of the station's layout to create traps and choke points. Lyris moved like a shadow, eliminating threats with efficiency, never unnecessary, never cruel. Her actions were precise, yet she made sure no human crew member was harmed in the process. Elias observed her carefully. He realized that while she had been sent as a challenge, she respected human life and judgment. That recognition of value was rare in the galaxy, and it gave him confidence. Humans were unpredictable, and that unpredictability could not be weaponized easily, even against someone as skilled as Lyris. Hours passed in a tense blur of action. Elias coordinated the crew, made critical decisions under pressure, and adapted to threats that changed constantly. Lyris's skills complemented his own, creating a balance between human intuition and calculated precision. By the time the final mercenary units were neutralized, the research station was secure, and the crew had managed to save most of the trapped scientists. When the chaos ended, Elias and Lyris stood in the control center, surveying the aftermath. Smoke still curled from damaged modules, but the core systems were stable. The humans they had protected looked at them with gratitude, unaware of the full danger they had faced. "You performed well," Lyris said quietly. "Your decisions, your courage, and your ability to lead under pressure, it is exceptional. Few humans would have succeeded where you did. Perhaps that is why the Empire finds humans intriguing. You survive where others fail. You adapt where others are rigid, and you refuse to bend when challenged. That is rare and dangerous to those who seek control. And that realization gave him hope. Humans were capable of extraordinary courage and ingenuity, and that strength could not be underestimated. The next days were quieter, but tension remained. Lyris began interacting with the crew more openly, though she never abandoned her observational stance. She trained with them, shared tactics, and sometimes engaged in sparring exercises with Elias. These sessions were intense, each movement deliberate, each action a lesson in strategy, skill, and adaptability. Elias noticed something surprising. Lyris was beginning to learn from him as well. She adapted her approach during exercises based on his choices, subtly acknowledging the unpredictability and resourcefulness of the human mind. The realization unsettled him slightly. He had never considered that the one sent to test him could also be learning from him. During one exercise, Lyris blocked a simulated attack and paused. "Your response was unexpected," she admitted. "Most would have taken the obvious route, but you exploited weaknesses I did not anticipate." Humans are interesting. She was still disciplined, still deadly, but there were moments of hesitation, moments where she allowed human judgment and emotion to guide her decisions rather than strict protocol. He did not misinterpret it. She was still Xiran, still loyal to her empire, but there was a growing recognition of human value in her actions. Then came a new development. The Union intercepted intelligence that suggested the Empire was planning a more direct test, one that would push Elias and his crew to the very limits of endurance, skill, and morality. A remote mining planet, rich in rare elements, had been targeted for sabotage. The Empire wanted to see if humans could maintain their principles, protect innocence, and survive under extreme conditions. Elias called a meeting with Lyris and his officers. "This is not just about combat," he said. "It is about decision-making, strategy, and humanity. The Empire is testing us, but we will not fail. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves, and we will act with courage and integrity even under pressure. You inspire loyalty, courage, and innovation in ways most species cannot. That is why the Empire fears you and why I am here. To test, to observe, and perhaps to learn. Humans do not back down, and we do not compromise when lives are at stake." Her presence was a constant reminder of the stakes, of the skill and danger that could be unleashed, but also of the respect and acknowledgement growing between them. When they arrived, the situation was dire. Mining modules were on fire, security drones were malfunctioning, and the attackers had begun extracting the valuable minerals for unknown purposes. Elias moved swiftly, deploying the crew to stabilize essential systems, rescue trapped miners, and secure the perimeter. Lyris operated like a shadow beside him, eliminating threats with precision, coordinating with him silently, and allowing human judgment to guide critical decisions. Hours of intense action passed. Elias navigated sabotage, ambushes, and moral dilemmas, balancing risk, strategy, and human life. Lyris observed closely, noting the resourcefulness, bravery, and moral clarity guiding each decision. By the time the final threat was neutralized, the planet's mining operations were stable, and all civilians were safe. Lyris regarded Elias with a mix of respect and intrigue. "You have done more than survive," she said quietly. "You have led, protected, and demonstrated what it means to be human. That is why the Empire sends me. Not just to challenge, but to understand what humans can achieve when pushed to the limits. That is why we cannot be controlled." Yet the trials had revealed something greater. Human courage, ingenuity, and moral clarity could not be broken. And Lyris, despite her purpose, had begun to see that truth as well. The stars outside the starbound horizon gleamed, distant and indifferent, but Elias knew the galaxy was watching. Humans, led by their unyielding spirit, would continue to rise, adapt, and confront every challenge with intelligence, courage, and heart. And in the silence between missions, Elias understood that the true test of humanity had only just begun. The starbound horizon glided silently through deep space, the stars reflecting off its polished hull like scattered diamonds. Elias Varn sat in the command chair, eyes scanning the latest reports. Something had shifted in the past weeks. The missions had grown more complex, the threats more precise, and the stakes higher. Every operation had been a test, and now he felt the Empire's hand tightening, as if they were preparing for their final measure. Lyris Kale moved quietly through the control room, adjusting panels and scanning sensor data. She had changed since her arrival. Her precision was sharper, her awareness of human behavior more acute, and her curiosity about Elias no longer subtle. She still respected protocol and her mission, but there was an unmistakable recognition in her eyes. Humans were exceptional, unpredictable, and unbreakable. "Captain," Lyra said softly, breaking the silence, "the Empire has escalated. Intelligence reports indicate coordinated sabotage across multiple colonies in the sector. This is no longer a simple test. They are trying to provoke humans, to force reaction and evaluate response under extreme pressure. We survive because we think, we act, and we refuse to surrender to fear or manipulation. That is why I was sent." A remote colony on the outer rim, critical for energy production, reported a massive power surge. Automated defense systems had been sabotaged, and an unknown faction was preparing to seize control. Elias immediately mobilized the crew, coordinating with Lyris to assess and respond to the threat. When they arrived, the colony was in chaos. Fires burned across several buildings, automated drones malfunctioned and attacked indiscriminately, and terrified civilians scrambled for safety. Elias' mind raced, calculating options, analyzing risks, and prioritizing life over machinery. Lyris moved beside him, scanning for threats. Her presence was precise and measured, but Elias noticed subtle changes in her behavior. She hesitated before taking lethal action, choosing instead to disable systems and redirect danger away from humans. It was a shift, and Elias recognized it for what it was, a growing respect for human life and judgment. "We will need to split teams," Elias instructed. "Half will stabilize critical systems, half will evacuate civilians and neutralize threats. I will lead the operation in the energy core. Lyris, you coordinate with me and guide the teams." Elias and Lyris moved through the burning corridors of the colony, coordinating human crews and guiding civilians to safety. The attackers were organized and persistent, but Elias' planning and human intuition proved invaluable. He improvised routes, created diversions, and made split-second decisions that kept the colony's population intact. Lyris provided tactical support, neutralizing immediate threats with deadly precision. Yet even in her efficiency, Elias noticed her subtle efforts to minimize harm, to preserve life where possible. He realized that while she had been sent as a test, she was evolving in her understanding of humanity. Hours passed in relentless action. The colony was damaged, but lives were saved. The attackers were neutralized or fled, and systems began to stabilize under Elias' direction. He allowed himself a moment of satisfaction, knowing that human ingenuity, courage, and coordination had once again overcome seemingly impossible odds. Yet the Empire's plan was far from over. Intelligence intercepted from the attackers revealed a deeper conspiracy. The Empire had coordinated with multiple factions across the sector, planning simultaneous strikes on colonies and outposts. The objective was clear: push humans to the brink, observe responses, and document failures. Elias gathered his officers and Lyris in the command center. "They are not just testing us anymore," he said grimly. "They are trying to provoke mistakes, to break morale, to force humans into compromise, but we will not yield. Every colony, every crew member, every life we protect strengthens human resilience. That is our strength. That is what the Empire cannot predict or control. You are remarkable. Most would falter under these conditions. But you inspire confidence, bravery, and ingenuity. That is why humans are unpredictable. That is why you have survived every test so far. That is why we endure." With Lyris's tactical guidance, they intercepted the freighter in a dangerous asteroid field. The navigation was perilous, requiring split-second adjustments and coordinated maneuvers. Elias relied on his instincts, Lyris provided precise calculations, and together they outmaneuvered the mercenaries, boarded the freighter, and secured the supplies. The crew watched in awe as Elias and Lyris led the boarding operation. The mission was a success, but it revealed something deeper. Humans could rise to challenges not just with technology, but with intelligence, courage, and moral clarity. The Empire's designs were being outmaneuvered at every step, not by force alone, but by humanity's unique qualities. That night aboard the starbound horizon, Elias and Lyris stood in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly, full of possibilities, dangers, and challenges. "You continue to exceed expectations," Lyris said quietly. "Not just in skill, but in judgment, morality, and leadership. That is why humans are dangerous, not because of weapons, but because of character. Perhaps that is why I no longer see you merely as a test subject. Perhaps I see you as something more, a true reflection of what humanity can achieve under pressure. Our strength lies in cooperation, courage, and the unyielding spirit of every human who refuses to be controlled. Humans, led by courage and principle, were unpredictable in ways even she could not fully anticipate. The next days were a whirlwind of missions, intelligence gathering, and strategic maneuvers. Elias and Lyris worked together seamlessly, combining human intuition with Ziran precision. They faced sabotage, espionage, and moral dilemmas designed to force compromise, yet every challenge was met with resourcefulness, courage, and careful thought. In the quiet moments between operations, Lyris observed Elias, noting the subtle ways he inspired his crew, adapted to threats, and made decisions that prioritized life and principle over expedience. She had been sent to test him, but she was learning instead. Learning what made humans extraordinary, what made them resilient, and what made them impossible to control. Elias, in turn, noticed subtle changes in her. She was still disciplined, still loyal to her mission, but there were moments where she hesitated, considered human judgment, and allowed empathy to guide her actions. He did not misinterpret it. She was a skilled operative, but she was evolving in her understanding of human values. By the end of the week, it became clear that the Empire's plan to break him had failed. The colonies were secure, the freighters delivered, and the crews inspired. Humans had demonstrated ingenuity, courage, and unbreakable moral clarity at every turn. Lyris Kale approached Elias one final time before the ship set course for a safer sector. "You have proven something remarkable," she said quietly. "Not just survival, not just skill, but the essence of humanity. That is why humans are unpredictable, unyielding, and worthy of respect. That is why I am beginning to understand my mission differently. Perhaps the test is not of you alone, but of humanity itself. Then perhaps the Empire has underestimated not just one human, but an entire species. And perhaps that is why they will never truly succeed in controlling you." And as the stars stretched endlessly ahead, Elias Varn prepared for whatever the Empire would send next, knowing that no matter the challenge, humans would rise, adapt, and triumph. The final test came without ceremony, without warning, and without mercy. The starbound horizon dropped out of hyperspace into a system that should have been empty. Instead, space was crowded with ships, Ziran war vessels, mercenary cruisers, and automated platforms forming a vast ring around a single planet. The planet below was human, a young colony, still fragile, still growing, and completely unprepared for what waited above it. Elias Varn felt the weight of the moment settle over him. This was no longer observation, no longer pressure. This was judgment. Lyris Kale stood beside him, silent, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. She knew this formation, she knew what it meant. "They have chosen," she said quietly. "This is the final evaluation. They believe overwhelming force will reveal the truth of humanity, whether you submit or break." He simply looked at the planet below, at the millions of lives that trusted humans to protect them. "Then they chose the wrong test," he said. The Ziran transmission came moments later. The image of High Strategist Vekar filled the main display, his silver features calm and cold. "Captain Elias Varn," Vekar said, "your defiance has been noted, your adaptability recorded, your influence observed. You have exceeded expectations. That makes you dangerous." "No." Automated platforms activated. Energy nets spread across orbital space. Communication jamming swept the system. The colony's defenses were overwhelmed within seconds. Elias turned to his crew. "Emergency protocols, evacuation shields, all non-combat vessels to planetary cover. We buy them time." The starbound horizon surged forward, weaving through enemy fire in patterns no Ziran simulator would predict. Elias did not follow doctrine. He did not follow probability. He followed instinct, experience, and trust in his people. Lyris watched in silence as human pilots flew maneuvers that should have been impossible. Ships drifted deliberately into enemy firing arcs, then vanished at the last second. Power was rerouted mid-engagement. Systems were used in ways they were never designed for. "This is chaos," she whispered. "No," Elias said. "This is humanity." Elias countered by flooding the orbital space with decoy signatures made from scrap, drones, and raw data noise. Ziran targeting systems struggled. Mercenary coordination failed. Still, the Empire's strength was immense. A Ziran command cruiser broke through and targeted the planetary shield generator. One strike would end everything. Lyris moved. Without asking permission, without waiting for orders, she interfaced directly with the Starbound Horizon systems, rewriting access codes, opening channels only she could reach. Elias looked at her. Lyris. I do. I have witnessed the result. Stand down, Lyris. Consoles exploded. Crew were thrown to the floor, but the colony remained intact. Silence followed. Then something unexpected happened. The mercenary ships began to withdraw. One by one, alien vessels powered down weapons, unwilling to continue a battle that made no sense. Humans were not winning by force. They were winning by refusing to behave as expected. Vekar stared at the tactical readout, disbelief breaking his composure. This is illogical, he said. Elias stepped closer to the display. Humanity often is, he replied. The Ziran fleet disengaged, not retreat, disengaged. A message spread across open channels, not just from Elias, but from human captains, engineers, medics, and civilians across the system. A single message, repeated in countless voices. We choose freedom. The crew laughed, rested, and told stories of survival. Elias stood once more on the observation deck. Lyris joined him. You could have left, she said quietly. You chose not to. I am no longer their weapon. But with courage, adaptability, and an unbreakable refusal to surrender who they were. And the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again.